And we bring in Jonathan Turley and Andy McCarthy. Of course, you know these guys, and we are happy to have you here. And let me start with you, Andy McCarthy. Your thoughts?
Well, I think this is Merrick Garland and Joe Biden derivatively being caught on the axle of their own politics. There was not any reason for there to be a special counsel in this case. The Biden Justice Department investigated Trump for 2 years before Jack Smith was appointed. He was appointed because Garland knew there were going to be cases brought against Trump. He knew that Trump would make the political claim that Biden was using his executive prosecutorial authority against his political enemies. So in order to create the illusion of independence of the prosecution of Trump from the Biden administration, Jack Smith was put in for that purpose. But the problem is, constitutionally speaking, his position is not created by Congress, and he's neither nominated by the president nor confirmed by the Senate. And the roster that David just ran through, most of those special counsels were confirmed U.S. attorneys. Pat Fitzgerald was a United States attorney. John Durham was. David Weiss is. There's gobs of authority for the Attorney General to appoint any confirmed United States attorney to any matter he wants to appoint that U.S. attorney to. But what he can't do is create a position and then fill it from somebody outside the government who hasn't been nominated by the president or confirmed by the Senate.
Yeah, it always seemed that Eileen Cannon was a bit hesitant. She was the judge who was saying, "Hang on here a little bit," and think about this, Professor Turley. Yeah, but just let me finish the point here. Because these cases were proceeding in New York, like the E. Jean Carroll case, and everybody said, wait a minute, you can't do this because that's not fair due process. And then you had the 34 felony counts that kept going with Judge Merchan's case in his courtroom. And Eileen Cannon, see, she kind of, she put her voice into this a little bit, saying, wait a minute on this and wait a minute on that. And she seemed to be the one bucking the trend. Andy, is that a fair read?
I think it's a fair read with respect to some things, although I think she's just giving him a fair trial, which is not something that's happened to Trump in Washington or New York. The problem with this issue is not peculiar to Judge Cannon, at least her detecting of it. Justice Thomas wrote about this very issue in the immunity case in his concurrence. Attorneys General Ed Meese and Mike Mukasey have both filed a friend of the court brief on this issue, pointing out and explaining why the appointment was unconstitutional.
Thank you, Andy. Stand by.
Jonathan Turley, you tweeted that this was the 3-point shot for Trump. The easier basket was the D.C. case, despite a far more favorable judge for Jack Smith. Tell us more.
Well, this is a seismic decision because the immunity decision that was issued by the Supreme Court was the second of a 1-2 punch for Jack Smith. Previously, the court had reversed an obstruction charge that impacted Trump as well. And so those two cases sort of ripped the wings off his case. So we were all looking to see how Jack Smith would handle it in D.C. He is a very motivated and favorable judge, Judge Chutkan. She has really been an ideal choice for Jack Smith. So the assumption was that Chutkan would do her level best to keep that case going even after these hits. Few people expected the Florida case to be the one that disassembled first. But what Judge Cannon is saying here is essentially, look, there's this weird anomaly in the Constitution. We have a process of which U.S. attorneys are nominated and they are then confirmed by the Senate. And yet the Attorney General can just go onto any street in D.C. and pick any person and make them a special counsel with greater authority than the U.S. Attorney. And that's what she's trying to get at here, saying, where is the footprint for this in the Constitution? Where is the authority to create Jack Smith within the first 3 articles of the Constitution? So it's a huge win for Trump. Other courts have really dismissed this claim with very little briefing. And so this will create a conflict. There are good arguments on both sides here. But you couldn't have more favorable news for Donald Trump, because I've said it from the beginning. The Florida case was by far the greatest threat to Donald Trump. The New York case, the Manhattan case, in my view, has layers of reversible error. It's going to be in the courts for a while. I think Judge Merchan did a particularly poor job in that case, and I don't even see the viable crime in that case. But putting that aside, Florida was the greatest challenge. There's also an irony here. Jack Smith has always been undone by his appetite. He has always gone for the greatest number of charges, the most aggressive approach. It got him reversed 8-0 before the Supreme Court in his previous major case. This is another example of overreach. If he had simply brought an obstruction charge against Trump, he very well could have had that trial before the election. But he had decided to pile on these classified documents charges. And I can tell you, I've been cleared defense counsel in national security cases. When you have that many classified documents, it's like invading Russia in winter. I mean, it goes very slowly.
Well done. Phil Holloway on X. This can be appealed by the government. Trey, as you said a moment ago, that's going to take a long time, and SCOTUS would likely uphold it based on the decision that was rendered by Justice Thomas. Andy McCarthy, you said we got gobs of stuff going on right now.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.